Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at functions. A function is a piece or a block of code that performs a specific task. There are different reasons why we use functions. First one is it makes our program easy to understand and debug. Another reason we might use functions is to make our code reusable. So that means we write a function in one file and we can use it in another file. And lastly, we can use it to divide large problems into smaller pieces, which makes them easier to solve. Now we can create a file called functions.c, and we're going to put in our template, hashtag include stdio.h. We're going to have a comment, we're going to have our main, which is going to explain functions, and it's going to return 0 as usual. And we're going to have our main function. Now when it comes to functions, there are two types. There's the standard library functions and there's user-defined functions. Today we're going to be looking at a user-defined function, but as an example you can take printf as a standard defined function. It's in the standard library and all functions in there are referred to as a standard library function. The user-defined functions are functions we ourselves create, which we're going to be creating right now. Now we're going to write in our main file, we're going to say square, and in parentheses we're going to put in 12. That means we want the square of 12, which would be 144. And we're going to return 0. We forgot a semicolon. Now we can write our function, which is going to be a square function. So the syntax to write a user-defined function is first we enter the return type, then the function name. Then if it takes parameters, we'll put it in parentheses. We've already seen a function like the main function. So the main function, the return type is int, and void means it takes no parameters. So that's how we define a function. Now we're going to define a function called square, which is going to print out the square of a number. Since it's only printing out the square of a number, it doesn't return anything, so it's going to be void. And we're going to call our function square, and in parentheses it's going to take in a number, an integer. So it's going to take in int n. And inside our function, we're going to printf the square of, then we're going to have a integer identifier, %d is %d followed by a new line. In the first %d we want n to be substituted. In the second %d we want the square of n, which is going to be n times n. Now we can close our function. Now we can save our file and see if it works. So it's supposed to print out 144. So we're going to save our file. We're going to compile it with GCC. It compiled with no errors. Now we can run the file. As you can see, it prints the square of 12 is 144. Now we're going to look at something else. We're going to go back to the function file. Now what if we had our function defined at the end of our file? That means after the main file, after the main function. We can see what happens then. So we're going to remove our square function from the top, and we're going to go at the bottom and we're going to write the function again, which was void square. It's going to take an integer and it's going to print out the square of %d is %d followed by a new line, and it's going to substitute n and n times n. And that's it for our function. Now let's save it and see what happens. We're going to compile our file again. As you can see, we get an error. It says implicit declaration of function square. That means we defined a function before we used the function before we defined it. There's an easy fix to this. So we're going to go back to the file called functions.c. Now to tell the compiler to look for this function, and the function does exist, we're going to type the prototype of our function, something called the prototype, which is just the first line of our function, which is void square int n. We're going to take that and put it on the top of our file next to our include statement, followed by a semicolon. This tells the compiler that there is a function square, so it's going to go look for that function. So what we're going to do is get up to the top of our file and we're going to enter void square int n. This is referred to as the prototype of our function. We're going to follow that by a semicolon, and we can save our file now. And we're going to compile it again. As you can see, it compiled with no errors. We can run and see if it works correctly. As you can see, it works correctly. So don't forget, if you define your function after the main function, you need to put in the prototype of your function at the top of your file. And that's it about functions. As always, you can find the video code in the description, and you'll also find exercises with their solutions. And thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more programming videos.